in my brain was just like, are you going to kiss him? Are you going to kiss? What is happening? Why aren't you kissing?
Welcome to the season finale of 36 Questions Later, where we recorded 4 couples on blind dates asking each other the 36 questions that lead to love. These questions were featured in the New York Times and date back to a 1997 study. I'm your host, Mady Maio, and in this episode, we're following up with our couples 1 month after their dates to find out if the questions actually led to love.
Yes, are you falling in love?
Whoa.
Our first couple of the season was Pearl and Antoine. Their date had some of the season's funniest moments, like this one.
How old are you?
31.
Oh, at least you told me. Okay. I need to tell my age. I'm only 37. I'm 37.
Oh,
I'm 37.
okay.
What, you thought I was 40?
I had no idea.
What? I look 40 to you?
No, I didn't say that. You said that.
This date also had our cringiest moment of the season.
Why? Why are you all warm-hearted?
Yeah, I have hyperhidrosis.
Oh, okay. So sorry.
No,
sorry.
it's just my hands excessively sweat, so
Got you.
they're sweaty as hell.
When they first met, we could tell there was a big difference in their height. But when we asked Pearl about her first impression of Antoine, height didn't come up.
I thought he was cool. I thought he was super stylish and nice. He seemed like positive energy vibes, you know?
When we asked Antoine what was going through his mind when he saw Pearl, he said,
Then I didn't have anything. Like, it was just like, I just walked in and I was like, okay, I got this girl sitting here. It's like, what's gonna happen? Like, is this about to, like, how is she gonna talk? How is she gonna feel? And I didn't feel anything. I personally didn't feel anything. I just walked in and was just like, okay, she's here. Sat down, and then as she started talking and as we started answering the questions, I was just like, okay, yeah, now I'm understanding her a little bit more.
From the get-go, Antoine showed us that touch is his love language. It's how he connects with people. So when Pearl backed away from his touch, Antoine took it a certain way.
I kind of felt like she was almost like a germaphobe a little bit. She was just like, oh yeah, like, because I'm like a person that I'm a very nice person, and I like to I'm like a type of charming type of guy. So I would hold hands and stuff like that, and she would kind of she would do it for a minute, but then she would push back, and she would kind of go like this, where it's like, I don't know if I want him touching me. He just came off of flight around COVID, you know? So that's what I got out of it. I don't know. And I could be wrong, you know?
In general, they just didn't seem to vibe. They had some vulnerable moments together, but Pearl said she never felt a romantic connection.
As we started to ask the questions longer and longer, I kind of knew oh, this is probably not a romantic connection, but it's still he's worth getting to know, of course. And it's still interesting to I don't know, just see how someone else views the world. I just think at the end of the day, connecting with someone romantically is such a specific thing, you know? And it's nothing against anybody. It's just some people you connect with in that way and some people you don't. Yeah, I think you can still share closeness with another person and still share even love without it being, I guess, a future kind of romantic connection.
And even though Antoine thought Pearl was beautiful, he didn't feel like Pearl opened up as much as he did. He was especially thrown by her answer to one of the questions.
I felt like she just had a lot that was going on with her personally. You know, she said she cries a lot, and I was just like, I didn't understand that. You know, I'm not a psychologist, but if you can read it between the lines and you can see the way she is talking, it's like she almost puts a camouflage or a wall up, and she covers what she actually feels like or what she's actually been through, you know? Me, I'm just an open book. I'm just yeah, this is my life. I don't care. You like it, whatever. But her, she's more I don't know. I didn't get 100%. I wouldn't say she was lying, but I didn't get 100%. I felt like the truth out of her could have came out a little bit more, but she held back on certain questions. And, and she, certain other questions, she kind of gave herself out where she was she had said something about she cries a lot. And I just didn't understand that, you know?
Okay, so it wasn't meant to be for Pearl and Antoine. What about our youngest couple, Kennedi and Elliot? They're both in their early 20s, and you could tell from the things they bonded over.
I like to party as well.
Cool.
I like to dance. I've been to a lot of raves this year.
Nice.
Yeah, I love raves.
Oh,
They're
right.
fun.
Yeah. No, cool. We can definitely talk about that. Yeah.
And I was
cool.
a theater kid.
Yeah. Look
Yeah.
at that.
There you
Easy.
go.
Kennedi was nervous as she waited for Elliot to arrive. She didn't know what to expect. When Elliot walked through the doors, he was also nervous, but for a very different reason.
You know, something really funny, she reminds me a lot of an ex that I have, which was so at first I chucked because she also loves to frequent all these different websites that look at like all these different kind of postings. So at first I went, and then it was like, oh no. She was gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. Her vibes were good, her smile was nice when we walked in. I think both of us were a little antsy, rightfully so, a little nervous, and I think that kind of made us a little bit more comfortable in like the initial, or at least made me a little bit more comfortable knowing that she was a little bit nervous as well, or assuming that she was a little bit more nervous as well. But first reaction was good. She was very, very pretty.
But the couple's nerves seemed to calm down as they got deeper into the questions. Elliot noticed a sudden change midway through.
It's an interesting like switch that flipped, and I don't want to say halfway through. I was, let's say, around question 10-ish, where both of us kind of like, you could tell sat back and relaxed a little bit more into the questions and started having fun and not acting so, not that we were robotic, but it felt a little robotic at first, like, oh, we need to be answering these questions and we need to be doing this because it's what we're supposed to be doing, yada, yada, yada. And then finally, as time went on, we both were kind of laying back and being a little bit more comfortable in the conversation. I was like, while we were talking, really admired her listening skills. She was a very, very good listener and very attentive when she was listening. And I really appreciated that. And I hope that like when she was talking that I came off in the same way, just because she really gave me a good space to speak my mind, which was really cool.
Kennedi shared similar feelings during our follow-up call. She was surprised by the things she had in common with Elliot. They'd both lived in Hawaii and were theater kids growing up. Still, there were a couple moments that she said she struggled with.
We were doing the 4 minutes to like stare into each other's eyes. I kept giggling.
I'm gonna laugh. Okay.
I thought it was funny. I was just like, are we allowed to laugh? And he just wasn't laughing. And I was like, why? Why aren't you laughing?
I can't. This is so funny. How you just think.
That was kind of funny. That was kind of weird. Or there was like a lot of compliment the other person. And like, I feel like we complimented each other like enough, but we don't know enough about each other to like keep giving each other compliments. Like, I like your, but I didn't want it to be conceited either. Like, I didn't want to be like, oh, I like your smile. I like your eyebrows. Like, because I think I did say that. And I think that's actually a good compliment because I think that's a good compliment. If I'm gonna give like a looks compliment, I think eyebrows are a good one. But I didn't want it to be like that, and I just started running out of like genuine compliments at one point.
Overall, it seemed like they got along pretty well, especially since Elliot gave Kennedi a ride home after.
She was calling an Uber home, and I was like, don't do that. You literally live like 5 minutes away from me. So I drove her home. We talked about the experience and life, and just like did everything in like an not so aggressive of it, not aggressive, not the right word, but you know what I'm trying to say, like not a setting where others were watching. And that was fun. That was nice. We exchanged social medias. We've commented on each other's things a few times. It's, yeah. And literally she lives like 5-minute drive from me.
That's the last time they saw each other in person, but they've kept in touch. Sort of.
We have each other on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you liked any of his stuff?
Yeah. Like, we both share this experience together. I think we'll like support each other from afar.
So they didn't fall in love. At least not yet. In our follow-up call with Elliot, he seemed open to the possibility of a romance with Kennedi. When he was asked if the questions led to love, he said,
I'd want like one more interaction to answer that question.
Would you make one more interaction happen?
Yeah, I haven't, but I would. That never hurts. Things like that. I mean, when are you ever going to be able to be in this type of situation again in your life? Like, why not capitalize and see what could come of it?
Kennedi might not have been as enthusiastic, but she felt like she could really connect with Elliot if they ran into each other at a party. She knows a lot about him, and she'd ask for updates on things he mentioned during their date. Sounds like the ball is in Elliot's court.
Good job.
Good job. Brilliant work.
Next, let's take a look at Sue and Susan. On their date, they both shared heartbreaking moments of domestic violence they'd suffered in their previous marriages. Here are 2 clips from their date. One from Susan, and then one from Sue.
Yeah, I didn't realize that you could actually pick someone up by their hair.
Like physically, like the hair doesn't come out? Yeah, I didn't need to figure that out.
No, that wasn't something that you probably needed to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is why we have the tissue here.
Yeah.
Yep.
We had a domestic, similar to you, a domestic abuse situation where I got thrown down our stairs and out the door wearing just a nightgown. And when my neighbor called the police, they came over and they asked him about that. And he goes, yes, I did, and I'd do it again. And silly me went and got money out of the bank and bailed him out because I didn't know what to do with 2 young children.
Thankfully, both of them got out of abusive relationships and seem to be living their best lives now. Even though they'd both been married to men, today, Susan identifies as queer and Sue as bisexual. When we asked them about their first impressions of each other, they both said that they felt an immediate connection.
I felt connected. We were both on similar journeys. So we are both, married to cis men for more than half our lives. We both have adult children. That struggle of womanhood. We shared that struggle of being a woman in today's society. And it was just the divine feminine connection is just so magical, just on a spiritual level.
I thought she was attractive. I thought she was somebody that I could definitely have a relationship with of some sort. Very nice person. We got some of the answers she gave me, and I'm sure some of the answers I gave her really struck a chord with me.
It felt like they had a deep conversation, but as the questions progressed, it seemed like Sue and Susan's connection might be more spiritual than romantic.
Well, for me personally, what was going through my mind was, I don't feel like this is going to be a love connection, like a relationship connection in that sense of sexuality. But what I was thinking was, wow, she could be a really good friend to add to my tribe, and just being there and practicing active listening. That was very futile. Like it's so crazy how we don't actually listen to each other. And being in that moment was just a magical time to settle in and tap into someone else's energy and actually give them that respect and that time to listen and process that journey with her.
I was trying to figure out what kind of relationship I'd want with this person. Could I have a relationship with this person? And the answer is, as we talked more and more, the answer came out as yes, I could have some sort of relationship with this person. Not necessarily, her idea of what kind of relationship she's looking for and what I'm looking for may not be the same, but that doesn't mean we can't have a relationship of some sort, just even as friends or cohorts in crime or something. I think she'd be a lot of fun to hang out with here in San Diego. I could get into a lot of trouble with her. I know I get into a lot of trouble with her because I have a feeling that she thinks very similar to the way I think. And I do a lot of things that people say, I can't believe you've done that, Susan. I just can't. And then there'd be 2 Susans that they'd be saying that to. So, that also is very, very funny.
Hey, if the questions don't lead to love, then friendship might be the next best thing. And the more they talked, the more it became clear they'd stumbled into a beautiful friendship in a way that Sue thought would have been impossible in any other setting.
I felt close. I felt very close to her. I felt that I saw the inner part of her that I did not see when I walked in the room. I felt like I could connect with her in a way that I never would have connected. If I saw her walking down the street, I would have, waved hi or something. I say hello to everybody. So does she. So we probably would say hello to each other, but that would have been it, and we would have continued on our path.
Their date ended with tears streaming down their cheeks as they stared into each other's eyes for 4 minutes. To Sue and Susan, that moment seemed more powerful than any of the 36 questions that came before it.
That 4 minutes part of staring into someone's eyes was really impactful. Yeah, I really recommend that everyone does that. With anyone they're thinking about dating, that should be like the first date, It should be one of the things you do on the first date. Because I really felt like it energetically and spiritually connects you with another human.
I don't have a problem with staring into people's eyes. I feel that's the only way you can sometimes really connect with somebody. And by the time we did that, I felt like I was looking to get into her soul, into herself, not just eyes. And I could really understand where she was coming from and how she wants to interact with the world around her.
So, where are Sue and Susan at now? Have they kept in touch?
We've done some texting back and forth. I actually sent her, I talked to a few of my friends who I thought might be interested in dating and sent her a couple numbers. So I haven't heard back to see if she's connected with them or not, but I have a very large group of women that span all age ranges. So I had a couple ladies. While I was talking to her, I was in my mind going, oh yeah, I should tell so-and-so about her. Oh yeah, I should tell her about this woman. So yeah, I hope that I helped her at least create some friendships. You know, she's in San Diego, so I referred her to some people in San Diego.
She's invited me to a couple parties. Unfortunately, they've been days that I've been working, so I haven't been able to attend. Last week, Thursday, they had a big party in Long Beach area, which I would love to have gone to, but I was working up in the Burbank area on the Warner Brothers set. And she goes, well, just leave there and come here now. And I'm like, I can't, I'm in the middle of a shoot. I can't do that. She says, well, not any fun. You got to come down here. And by the time I ended up passing Long Beach, and I could have stopped, but they were already gone. I mean, I only got out of there at 1:30. So they had already, the bar closed or wherever they were closed at about 2, and they had left at about like 1 o'clock. So, but not next time. I have a feeling that as time goes on, we'll continue to interact, and because there's a lot of mutual stuff between the two of us. We're both, again, same age group. We're both doing the same stuff. And even though her hair is gray, my hair is blonde, we look almost interchangeable. So a couple people, I showed a picture of her to somebody. They go, is that you with gray hair? I'm like, no, that's a friend of mine. Her name is Susan also. And they said, well, aren't you Susan also? I'm like, yeah, but no, it's a different person.
You can tell they're genuinely happy to have met each other, even if they didn't necessarily fall in love. To me, Sue and Susan offer so much hope. There's all this romantic pressure when it comes to dating, finding that special someone that fills your heart with butterflies. If your idea of a successful date is limited to someone you have sexual chemistry with, you're probably setting yourself up for a lot of disappointment. But if you approach a date as an opportunity to meet someone cool and actively listen to their story, then you'll enjoy the process that much more. Before we wrap up, let's check in with our most promising couple, Sarah and Tommy. Most couples only needed about an hour and a half to get through the 36 questions. But Sarah and Tommy had such a strong connection, their date lasted almost 3 hours. Things got real steamy when Sarah said,
I think the ability to fix things and the drive to fix things and like that engineering mindset is so hot.
All right, I'll take it. I'll take it.
Just like someone that I know would help me get out of any situation is like,
We found the right guy.
Yeah, great.
Early on, it was clear there could be a spark between them. Here's Tommy's first impression of Sarah, followed by what she initially thought of him.
My first thought was like, oh no, she's really, really pretty. I'm gonna be super awkward. That was my first reaction, was like panic a little bit of knowing that this is being recorded and like feeling like, oh man, like I'm gonna be super weird because she's very, very pretty. Fortunately, I think I wasn't too weird, so I don't know, we'll let people be the judge of that. But that was my first initial gut reaction.
I thought he looked very nice and sweet. He was obviously there before me because I was running late. And I don't know, I definitely felt a little guilty for that. And then that was it. Like, I was just like, okay, let's get into it. I wasn't intimidated, but I was, I don't know, I was pleasantly surprised by what he looked like and how nice he was and charming he was upon meeting him immediately.
As they got deeper into the questions, the date went from good to great. Both of them could feel the vibe becoming more and more romantic.
I would say initially, my impression was like, this is just like a really friendly, nice guy. you know, stranger, but open to like getting to know him. I just really saw him as like a very friendly soul in the beginning, like almost platonic. But as he answered the questions, I felt myself being like, oh, that is a quality I'm looking for in a partner. Like that's something I've always wanted in a partner. That's something that is really attractive to me as he gave his answers. And so as the questions went on, I could feel myself opening up to the idea of him as a romantic partner, from putting him in like he's a stranger who just is like maybe friendly, to like, oh, this is someone who has the qualities I'm looking for in a future partner. So I think the questions definitely lined up correctly, kind of flowed correctly into making me change my perception from friend to partner.
It was definitely like, I feel like a shift throughout. Like there wasn't like one question where all of a sudden like, oh, everything changed. But it was definitely like, there's definitely a measurable difference of went from being like, oh, kind of nervous, like I don't know who this person is and like how will this go, to feeling like I'd gotten a really good sense of who she was and like what she was about and like what she was like really quickly. And there was definitely a feeling of like, whoa, that's crazy how quickly we went from like strangers to like feeling pretty comfortable with each other. And that was kind of it was cool to see that, and somewhat like baffling almost, of like, wow, that doesn't happen every day. Like that kind of, sort of surprise and whoa, in a good way, I think. So definitely by the end was definitely like feeling really good about her and potentially doing that kind of thing with her more often, which, is pretty cool to do that over the course of a couple hours, to go from kind of that, what are we doing here? I have no idea who you are, to like, wow, there's a lot that's cool about this person. And I feel like I actually know that, not just kind of vague impression of that. So that was pretty neat.
Just like the other couples, Sarah and Tommy had a vivid memory of the ending when they stared into each other's eyes for 4 minutes. Sarah told us how tempted she was to go in for a kiss.
The only time I have stared at someone that long in the eyeballs is like, this is about to lead to like an intimate experience. And so that's all that I could think about, was like, we just went on a really intense date. We feel like we're connecting. This is the moment where we kiss.
After the camera stopped rolling, Sarah and Tommy chatted a little bit and exchanged numbers. But there was one problem. Tommy lives in San Diego and Sarah lives in Los Angeles. The good news is Tommy's company has an office in LA that he goes to every now and then. On one of his recent visits, they made plans to meet up for a second date. Out of all of the couples this season, Sarah and Tommy were the only ones who saw each other again. But how did things go when they didn't have a script to guide the conversation?
One of the days I was there for work, we actually went on another date. We got some food, and it wasn't the same exact conversation because we didn't have the guidance of the questions and stuff. And it felt a little more like a normal date. But I think we already had this kind of cool baseline. And so definitely still had a lot to talk about and a lot to bond over, and kind of certain things to like explore more deeply that, we're answering just that question, and there's like follow-ons you could do for forever. But obviously we're working through the questions.
It went really well too. Ironically, we stayed talking for like another 3 hours. So I was like, at this point, I've talked to you more than I've talked to most men ever. But our conversation just flowed really easy, even without the prompts. He's a great conversationalist, and he had some really intentional questions to ask in real life too that weren't, written on cards. So we were able to just share really like open and honestly and authentically with each other. And he was really sweet in the way that he planned it and stayed in communication, stayed in contact.
Love that for them. I was getting ready to pick out what I wanted to wear to their wedding, but I pumped the brakes when I found out that their future is still TBD.
It's kind of up in the air, honestly. We don't live by each other is the thing. Like he is 2.5 hours away, 3 hours away, and is up here for work occasionally. And with me working 3 jobs this month, like I don't have any time to go to San Diego. So it's really just like a matter of, if our energies and paths align again.
Okay, so looking back, this season has a little bit of everything. A man and a woman who weren't meant to be, 2 women who didn't find romance but did strike a beautiful friendship, a young couple who ended up being Instagram friends, but leaving it at that for now, and an amazing blind date that could ultimately lead to love. Even though each date felt so different from the next one, they all had something special in common. Every participant said they would be happy to do the experiment again. In a way, all the dates led to love. It just depends on how you define it. I happen to like Tommy's definition.
I think in some sense, the questions definitely lead to love. I don't know if it's like, oh, do they lead to love in the case of like our specific instance of like, this is like someone who I'm quote unquote in love with. I think it's like early, it's very early to like say something like that on like the true like deep romantic level. But I think to know someone deeply is to love them, like in kind of romance aside. And so yes, because I think it does reveal a lot about a person and shows you that person in like their truest form. And you know, it could be that like, hey, I love this person and know a lot about them, even if it's like, no, we're not a romantic match or anything, which is still, I think that's like harder and a longer path to figure out. But yeah, I think in like a whatever grand, more divine cosmic sense, however you want to phrase that, like, yeah, because it's like, you know the person and therefore like that's part of what's happening. So kind of two answers to your question, but of yes, definitely, and then also maybe, in the sense that figuring out whether that knowing is a, you know, what we colloquially refer to as love in the romantic sense versus the sort of grander sense of just knowing someone really well.
And that's a wrap. I'm Mady Maio, and it's been a pleasure hosting 36 Questions Later. If you enjoyed the series, feel free to share your favorite episode with a friend. If you liked it, they probably will too. And be sure to follow Sycamore content to keep up with future series. Thanks for tuning in.